You know that feeling when a single sentence from someone can derail your entire day? One careless remark, one sharp tone, one moment of disrespect, and suddenly your mood collapses, your thoughts spiral, and hours later you're still replaying the scene in your head like a broken record. Now pause for a second, because what I'm about to tell you can permanently change how you experience anger. What if that emotional surge was never meant to last longer than 90 seconds? Neurology tells us that the stress chemicals responsible for anger naturally flush out of your system in about a minute and a half. 90 seconds. That's it. After that, the body is done. The reaction is over. So why does anger linger for hours, days, even years? Because long after the chemicals are gone, we keep the emotion alive with our mind. We replay the insult. We rehearse the argument. We imagine what we should have said. It's like a smoke alarm going off because you burnt toast. The alarm is useful. It warns you. But instead of opening a window, you keep burning more toast. Here's the hard truth most people never hear. Anger is not something that happens to you. Anger is something you continue. And once you understand this, once you truly see it, you realize something extraordinary. You have a choice. This is where Stoic wisdom begins. And here, at Stoic Sage Academy, this is where emotional freedom is built. Chapter 1. The Trigger Illusion. You are not a set of buttons. We say this as if we're powerless machines, as if other people are holding a remote control to our nervous system. But here's the Stoic reality. No one can push a button you haven't installed. The trigger illusion is the belief that other people possess magical authority over your inner world. Buttons don't exist on their own. They only work because they're wired into something deeper. Those so-called buttons are unresolved wounds, old insecurities, or violated values carried forward from the past. When someone triggers you, they're not attacking you randomly. They're illuminating a place within you that still asks for attention. That coworker makes the same sarcastic remark, and your reaction is immediate. Heat rises, jaw tightens. Instead of reacting on autopilot, pause and ask, why does this land so hard? Maybe it echoes the voice of a parent that was never satisfied. Maybe it touches a fear of not being respected. In that moment, the coworker isn't controlling you. They're revealing something about you. When you stop living like a remote control, you reclaim your authorship over your emotional state. No one gets to decide how you feel without your permission. Think about the person who triggers you the most. What they activate in you was already there. Chapter 2. The Masked Emotion Insight. What anger is really guarding. Here's a truth most people never uncover. Anger is rarely the real emotion. Anger is a bodyguard. It shows up fast, loud, and forceful to protect emotions that feel far more vulnerable. Hurt, fear, rejection, or shame. When someone criticizes you and anger surges, look closer. The anger isn't the wound. The wound is the feeling of not being seen, not being valued, not being enough. Anger steps in because it feels powerful. Vulnerability feels exposed. Your partner forgets something important to you and you explode. But underneath the anger is a quiet question. Do I matter to you? Anger shouts because it's easier than admitting pain. When you speak to the real emotion instead of the mask, everything changes. Saying, I felt overlooked, invites connection. Saying, you never care, invites defense. One opens a door, the other builds a wall. Stoic wisdom isn't about suppressing emotion, it's about understanding it. When you identify what anger is protecting, you address the root instead of fighting the symptom. Vulnerability heals. Anger, left unchecked, multiplies distance. Reflect on your last intense reaction. What softer emotion was hiding underneath the armor? Chapter 4. The Inner Gap Revelation. The space that gives you power. Between what happens to you and how you respond, there is a space. Most people never notice it. They live their entire lives reacting, convinced there is no alternative. But within that space lives your freedom.
Viktor Frankl realized this truth in circumstances designed to strip humans of all dignity. Even there, he discovered that while everything can be taken from a person, one thing remains: the freedom to choose one's response. A trigger hits, the body reacts automatically, chemicals surge, but before words leave your mouth or fingers hit send, there is a brief opening, a moment of authorship. When you learn to recognize that moment, your life begins to change. A passive-aggressive email lands in your inbox. Your instinct is to reply immediately. Instead, pause and ask, what response would I respect myself for tomorrow? That single question widens the space. This inner gap is not weakness, it's discipline. It's the difference between being bounced around by circumstances and directing your own course. Those who seem unshakable have simply learned to live in that space. You can learn it too. Chapter 4. The Witness Practice. Watching emotions without becoming them. What if emotions didn't have to control you? What if you could experience them the way you experience weather, fully aware, yet untouched? Inside you exists a witnessing self, an observer that can notice emotions without drowning in them. Anger arises, heart rate increases, thoughts accelerate. Instead of saying, "I am angry," the observer says, "Anger is present." That subtle shift changes everything. You are no longer the storm, you are the sky. This observing awareness is always steady. It allows you to think, "I'm having the thought that this person is disrespectful," rather than unconsciously declaring it as absolute truth. Your teenager rolls their eyes. Irritation flares. Activate the observer. I notice irritation forming. Now you're watching the emotion instead of being dragged by it. From this place, responses become wiser, calmer, more effective. The observer self gives you emotional immunity. You don't need to avoid emotions or suppress them. You can experience any feeling without surrendering control. Remember a moment when you stayed calm under pressure. You weren't lucky, you were observing. Now you can do it on purpose. Chapter 5. The Perspective Shift. Difficult people as teachers. What if the most difficult people in your life aren't obstacles, but instructors? This single reframing can transform frustration into growth. Every challenging person becomes a lesson in disguise. That critical boss? They're strengthening your resilience. That passive-aggressive neighbor? They're sharpening your boundary skills. Life doesn't hand out challenges randomly. It assigns curriculum. Just as a physical trainer introduces discomfort to build strength, emotional trainers provoke reactions so you can develop mastery. Growth never happens in comfort. Your micromanaging manager sends yet another email. Instead of thinking, "They don't trust me," try, "This is training me to remain composed under pressure." The moment shifts from personal attack to personal development. Now you respond differently. You ask better questions. You stay grounded. You stop taking everything as an insult and start treating it as practice. When you see difficult people as teachers, victimhood dissolves. You become a student of your own evolution. Every interaction becomes a chance to grow stronger internally. Look at your most challenging relationship. What quality is it training in you right now? Chapter 6. The Balance Framework. Guarding peace without isolation. Boundaries are not walls, they're gates, and you are the gatekeeper. Their purpose is not to shut people out, but to protect what matters inside. Healthy boundaries function like skin. They allow nourishment in and keep harm out. The problem isn't that people cross boundaries, it's that many are never clearly set. I hear that you're upset, but I don't respond well to being shouted at. Let's talk when things are calmer. This isn't aggression, it's clarity. It's self-respect expressed calmly. A friend constantly vents without wanting solutions. Instead of absorbing the weight, you say, "I care about you, but I can listen for a few minutes unless you want help finding a solution." You're still compassionate, but no longer drained. Boundaries preserve your energy. They allow you to show up fully without burning out. Stoics understood this well. You cannot serve others if you're internally exhausted. Identify the person who drains you the most. What clear boundary would protect your peace without closing your heart. Chapter 8. The Trigger Cartography. Mapping your emotional minefield. You wouldn't walk through a minefield without a map, yet most people navigate relationships without understanding where their emotional explosives are buried. Your triggers are not random. They follow predictable patterns, certain tones, certain personalities, certain situations that echo unresolved experiences, authority figures who feel dismissive, comments that mirror old rejections, jokes that reopen childhood wounds. When you begin mapping these patterns, your reactions stop surprising you. This tone reminds me of my former boss who constantly doubted me. No wonder my defenses are up. Awareness replaces confusion. Knowledge creates choice. When you see the landmine, you don't step on it, you step around it. For 1 week, keep a simple trigger log. Each time you feel activated, write down who was involved, what was said or done, and what it reminded you of. Be curious, not judgmental. Patterns will emerge. Impatience from authority figures always triggers me. Sarcasm hits me hard because it was used to belittle me growing up. These insights are not weaknesses, they're instructions. When you know your triggers, you can prepare for them. Preparation turns reaction into response. You stop being blindsided and start moving intentionally. Everyone has emotional landmines. Most people just stumble over them repeatedly. Mapping yours is emotional intelligence in its purest form. Notice what reliably triggers you. That pattern isn't your prison, it's your blueprint for freedom. Chapter 9. The Balanced Compassion Model. Caring without absorbing. You can care deeply without carrying someone else's emotional weight. You can love someone without inheriting their chaos. This is the art of balanced compassion. Compassionate distance means staying emotionally present without becoming emotionally entangled. You allow yourself to witness pain without letting it take residence inside you. I see that you're struggling and I care about you. How can I support you in a way that doesn't overwhelm either of us? This keeps connection intact while protecting your stability. Think of a lifeguard. They don't panic and jump in without equipment. They offer support in a way that doesn't create two victims. That's compassionate distance in action. A friend going through a painful divorce calls every day to unload their anger and despair. Instead of absorbing it all, you say, "I want to be here for you. Let's set dedicated times to really talk, and on other days, let's do something grounding or uplifting together." You're still supportive, but you're no longer consumed. This approach preserves your ability to help over the long term. Exhausted helpers eventually become resentful helpers. We all know people who carry everyone else's burdens. Their hearts are open, but their energy is depleted. That isn't noble, it's unsustainable. Think about the person whose emotional storms pull you under. How could you stay compassionate without drowning?
Chapter 10. The Narrative Interruption. Rewriting the stories that control you. You're not reacting to reality itself. You're reacting to the story you tell yourself about reality. Change the story, and your emotional experience changes with it. Every trigger activates a narrative. They don't respect me. They're trying to control me. These feel like facts, but they're interpretations filtered through past experience. What if their sharp tone doesn't mean disrespect, but stress? What if their silence isn't rejection, but distraction? The meaning you assign shapes the emotion you feel. Your manager sends brief, blunt feedback. Story 1, they're unhappy with me and I'm in trouble. Result, anxiety, defensiveness. Story 2, they're busy and want me to improve quickly. Result, curiosity, motivation. Same message, completely different internal reality. When you learn to catch these narratives, you stop being ruled by them. You step into the role of editor instead of victim. You choose interpretations that serve clarity rather than fear. Reflect on a recent emotional spike. What story did you tell yourself in that moment? And what alternative story could have been just as true? Knowledge without practice is just mental entertainment. Insight alone doesn't change your life. Application does. This is where everything you've heard stops being theory and starts becoming your default way of responding. This is where transformation becomes ordinary. Real integration doesn't come from being perfect, it comes from being consistent. Don't try to use everything at once. Choose one principle and live with it for a full week. Let it sink into your nervous system. When someone triggers you, remember the 90-second rule. When reactivity rises, look for the choice point. Every time you pause and choose differently, you are literally rewiring your brain. You are training calm the same way others train stress. For the next 7 days, commit to a single practice. Maybe it's the observer self. Each time emotion arises, simply say, "I notice this emotion." Nothing more. That small pause is powerful. By the second week, you'll notice something subtle but profound. The pause starts happening on its own. What once required effort becomes automatic. This is how small, repeated choices compound into massive inner change. The person who seems unshakable wasn't born that way. They practiced until composure became their default setting. There is nothing special about them, except repetition. And that means this is available to you too. People naturally respect those with emotional mastery. Calm is magnetic, stability is rare, and now you have the blueprint to develop both. Imagine the version of you who stays centered while others lose control. The version of you who remains steady when life applies pressure. That person isn't hypothetical, they're built. One practiced response at a time, here at Stoic Sage Academy.